In 1968, an American behavioral researcher named John B. Calhoun designed what he called a paradise for mice. He built a massive enclosure, 9 feet square, with perfect climate control, unlimited fresh food and water delivered on schedules, soft nesting materials, and 0 predators. Everything a mouse could possibly need to thrive. He called it Universe 25 because he had run this experiment 24 times before. Every single previous universe had ended in total extinction. He placed 4 breeding pairs of healthy mice inside. The population exploded. Within 315 days, the colony reached 620 mice, a thriving, successful civilization. And then, without warning, everything collapsed. Calhoun documented the collapse in 4 distinct phases. What he observed wasn't just population decline, it was the systematic destruction of every social behavior that makes a civilization function. The first 104 days were normal. Mice established territories, formed pair bonds, built nests, raised offspring. A functioning society. Population doubled every 55 days. Resources were infinite, so there were no limits. This is where most observers would have declared the experiment a success. Calhoun saw it differently. He noticed the most valuable resource wasn't food. It was space for meaningful social roles. As population grew, the number of available social positions, territory holders, defenders, mothers with private nests, became saturated. New mice were born into a world with no purpose, no role, no identity. On day 315, population growth suddenly stopped. Not because of resource scarcity, the food was still unlimited. It stopped because the society itself was breaking. Male mice who couldn't establish territories became hyper-aggressive. They formed roving gangs, attacking females and young randomly. Females, unable to defend their nests, became either hyper-aggressive themselves or completely withdrawn. Many abandoned their young before weaning. Infant mortality reached 96%. And then came the most disturbing observation in the entire experiment. A new class of mice emerged that Calhoun called the beautiful ones. These mice were physically perfect, well-fed, clean, uninjured, but they had completely withdrawn from society. They didn't fight, they didn't mate, they didn't defend territory or raise young. They just ate, drank, slept, and groomed themselves, endlessly, in isolation. The rest of the population fell into chaos. Cannibalism appeared. Sexual deviance skyrocketed. Mothers ate their young. But the beautiful ones showed no interest in saving their species. They had completely abandoned the biological drive to reproduce. By day 600, the death rate exceeded the birth rate. Even when Calhoun removed groups of mice and placed them in new, empty enclosures with infinite space and 0 population pressure, they refused to breed. The beautiful ones remained beautiful, alone, sterile. Universe 25 went extinct while surrounded by abundance. When Calhoun published his findings in 1972, he titled the paper, "Death Squared: The Explosive Growth and Demise of a Mouse Population." The scientific community was disturbed, but most dismissed it. Humans aren't mice.
Except, we built the exact same conditions. We created societies with unprecedented physical safety and material abundance. We eliminated most natural threats. But we never asked Calhoun's question. What happens when survival becomes effortless, but social roles become meaningless? Look at the behavioral patterns emerging in modern cities. Birth rates in developed nations are collapsing, below replacement level in 83 countries. Social isolation is epidemic. 40% of adults report having 0 close friends. Males are increasingly withdrawn. The percentage of men aged 18 to 30 reporting no sexual contact in the past year has tripled since 2008. Female aggression and competition has intensified in ways sociologists can't fully explain. Violence against children is rising in developed nations for the first time in 40 years. And then there are the beautiful ones. The humans who have optimized their lives to perfection. Flawless bodies, curated feeds, complete control over their environment. No conflict, no struggle, no danger. And increasingly, no relationships, no children, no community, just consumption, self-care, and isolation. Calhoun called it behavioral sink, when a species has all its physical needs met, but none of its psychological needs for purpose, struggle, and meaningful social hierarchy. The body survives, but the drive to continue the species shuts off. Now, this is where most documentaries would try to comfort you. They'd say, but we're not mice. We have consciousness. We can recognize the pattern and change course. But here's what keeps psychologists awake at night. The mice in Universe 25 never realized what was happening to them. They didn't hold conferences about declining birth rates. They didn't write think pieces about social collapse. They just stopped caring. Individually, quietly, naturally. If behavioral sink is a real phenomenon, if abundance plus overcrowding equals extinction, then the terrifying question isn't, will we recognize it in time? The terrifying question is, what if we're already beautiful ones, and we just can't tell? Calhoun spent his final years trying to answer one question. Is behavioral sink reversible? He never found a definitive answer, but his notes suggest he believed the solution wasn't in changing the environment. It was in choosing discomfort. Choosing the inefficient commute to see a friend in person. Choosing the risky vulnerability of real relationships over the safety of digital ones. Choosing to create something that might fail instead of consuming something perfectly optimized. Because here's what Universe 25 proved beyond doubt. A species cannot survive on comfort alone.